Today we're welcoming Rob Dolan from PRD Nationwide in Horsham. And what we're going to discuss obviously is buying and selling of houses, of your home or investment properties. And we all know that selling a property can be one of the most stressful things that you might do in your lifetime. So we're going to have yarn to Rob and see, get a few insights to see, a few hints and tips about ways to go about it in a manner that makes it less stressful and provides better outcomes. Welcome, Rob.
No worries. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for inviting me along today.
No worries. PRD is a bit of a new name. Obviously, there's a change of branding from West Davison Real Estate to PRD Nationwide. What's the background of PRD?
Gaz, the reason that we changed to PRD Nationwide, it stands for Property Research and Development. It's a network, so it's just not a standalone company. We're actually involved in a network. So they actually do a lot of research behind the background for us. So when we go and appraise people's properties, that we've got a lot more information at our fingertips. They also give us stats of what's happening in your community, or if you're looking to move to another area, they also have stats available that we can give where property growth, what areas are performing, what land prices are doing, etc. So if someone wants to buy in another area outside Horsham, they can come and see us. We can find out through the network what that town is performing, where the growth areas are for them as well. So it's all about supplying more information to the customer. In the end, gives them better service. And being part of the network, we get referrals from other towns. People moving from Ballarat to Horsham, or vice versa. People moving from Horsham to Ballarat, we can send those clients down to there. So it's just making sure it's a one-stop shop. We give them more information, and we can help them further along. So it's improving our service.
Fantastic. Just looking at first buyers initially, first home buyers. What's some of the things that they need to consider when they're looking at their first purchase?
Look, the most important thing I say to first home buyers is to shop within their budget. Work out what they can actually afford. So before they even go and have a look at any properties, and everyone wants to, what they say, champagne taste on beer budget. People always want to start off where their parents have left off. They want the new home, the new brick veneer with the plasma screen TVs and the 2 living areas and the en-suites, etc. But you've got to start somewhere. So it's about being what you can feel comfortable, where you can and where you can meet in the market. So sometimes that might be starting off with a weatherboard home, or a small unit, or even a housing commission home. So the most important thing I'd give any first home buyer is to go and see a financial advisor, or go and see their bank and say, what can they actually afford? Not what the bank will actually willingly give them, because the banks like lending money at the present, but what they can actually afford on their weekly income. If one of them was actually, if they fell pregnant and one of them had to be off work for 12 months, can they afford the home on one wage? Mm-hmm. So it's about probably buying a home that they can afford in their price range is the most important advice I could give any first home buyer.
And that'd obviously be one of the biggest mistakes you see, where people are going in with 2 incomes initially. Someone falls pregnant after marriage or whatever happens and can't afford it.
For sure. Look, it's certainly real estate, people get married, people get divorced, people have families and they need a bigger house. So the house that they buy today will not, in 5 years' time or 7 years' time, they'll probably change anyway. So look at what you want today and what you can afford today. And certainly take that into mind and make sure it's comfortable, because the last thing we really want to do is sell you a house and in 12 months' time or 2 years' time that you're ringing us up and saying, look, sorry, we can't afford the house that we're not meeting our loan repayments, the bank's putting in pressure. It's not a nice situation. We don't want to sell that to anyone in those circumstances. In the end, as I said, shop within your budget.
Yeah. So go to the bank, find out what they'll lend up to, but then be conservative on top of that, because the banks these days, one of the big profit centres is the amount of money they can lend out. So find out what you can go up to, but then be very conservative, take into account lots of different scenarios of, life changes thereafter. That's great advice.
For sure. The other thing too, Gaz, just be mindful of, interest rates are very, very low at the present. You can get a home loan around 6%. They are going to rise at some stage, whether in the next 2 or 3 years they may not, but at some stage, I'm sure the market will turn around and we might see 10s or 9s or 10% interest rates again. Mm-hmm. So maybe even budget for that in the future, that may happen.
Yep, excellent advice. Now, when buyers are going to an open house and they're, the estate agent's not just there to take down the names. Surely some questions that a first-time buyer should be asking the estate agent about the house. What sort of questions would you recommend?
For sure, look, I think that they should have a look through the home, make sure they like the house first, that's the home that they want to buy or can see themselves living in. Some of the questions that they might ask the estate agent is how long that home's been on the market. Has it been on the market 1 or 2 weeks, or has it been on the market for 3 or 4 months? What time frame the vendors are looking to move. So if they were wanting to move into a house that they need to move into a house in 30 days, but the vendors can't move out for 6 months, that might be a problem for them. Or if the property's got a tenant that has a 12-month lease and they need to be in a home in 30 days, well, then that home is not going to suit for them. So probably I'd find out what the motivation of what the people who live in the home, when they are actually planning to move, would be one key thing.
Right.
The other thing is that they probably want to know is if there's been any other offers made on the home, because if they're looking at making an offer, I mean, what is the vendor rejected or knocked back before already previously, so they can look at making their offer higher. Also, the other thing that they should ask for is a Section 32 if they're seriously interested in the home. A Section 32 is under the Sale and Land Act. As the vendor supplies it to the purchaser, it has copies of the rates, copy of the water rates, any permits, all services available to the home. It's a bit like a driver's license. It tells them everything they need to know about the home. So, you know, if there's a sewage easement in the backyard, if they want to put a shed out the back, is that going to be a problem? So it's vital information they need to know when purchasing a home. And, you know, before you can buy a house in Victoria, there's always has to be a Section 32 available for purchase review.
So as the people go through, they get quite keen on the place. They're considering putting in an offer for the house. At what stage should they get, say, a check by a registered builder, get an inspection for there, or check for white ants? At what stage does that need to be done?
They've got two options that they can do. They can either put prior to signing a contract, so they might want to get a builder through before they make an offer to have a look at what they may need to budget for. So in the future, say for example, e.g. the roof needs some repairs, the builder might come in and say, look, in 5 years time you're going to need to replace the roof, it's going to cost you $15,000. Well, they can budget for that over the next 5 years, that they know that the roof's going to last for the next 5 years. They can budget for that cost in the future. Or the other option that they can do is buy the property to secure the property, buying it subject to passing a white ant report or the builder's report. So that would normally allow 7 days, so they secure the home at a price that they're comfortable with, subject to getting a satisfactory result on a builder's report and a satisfactory report on a pest report. So if it doesn't meet those reports and there's a major problem, they can withdraw from the property or withdraw from the contract.
Fantastic. Let's assume that the property's up for auction, a bit of a stressful one, and they've done all their background checks and they're comfortable that the house is passed everything. Someone going to an auction, what do they need to consider, like a deposit and ownership details? What would you recommend there?
For sure, with an auction, it's under auction terms and conditions, whether you buy 3 days before or 3 days after an auction, Rob, people have to have, it's an unconditional contract. So for the vendor, when they sign the dotted line, they know that their home is sold. So as a purchaser, you need to be mindful that if you're signing a contract 3 days before or 3 days afterwards, you are signing an unconditional legal binding contract. You can't have a finance clause in there, you can't have a builder's report in there, you can't have a white ant report. It has to be an unconditional contract with a 10% deposit, normally at the vendor's terms, whether it's a 30 or 60 day settlement.
Right, so do your homework well prior to the auction.
Need to have their homework definitely done before the auction.
Just turning to the sellers, what's some of the biggest mistakes you see when people are selling?
Some of the mistakes, certainly the typical one, Rob, is everyone's got an opinion, and in any way, whether it's a parent, father, uncle, friend, everyone's got an opinion that they like to cast on people's homes. And, you know, in that instance, you should listen to people that know what they're talking about. You know, Uncle Jack that sold a property 5 years ago may not be an expert. I mean, he might have done his research 5 years ago, but he doesn't know what the market's doing today. So listen to the expert of what the home is actually worth. Biggest mistake is that some people can do is overprice the home, and they're not really on the market. It's about being in the market where the home is priced right, so you generate the interest. So I'd certainly say listen to people that know what they're talking about, making sure that you price the home and making sure that you get the right agent that you know who's going to do the right job for you.
Right. Well, that probably leads on to one of our questions. So when a seller's looking for an estate agent, what should they look for? And what are the tough questions that you need to be asking as an estate agent?
Look, certainly I think the questions that you need to ask your estate agent is, if you're selling your type of home, is that home, are they an expert in selling that type of home? For example, have they had a past history of selling high quality homes in the area before? So what is their track record? How did they go about it? What was the response that they got from the public with their marketing? What worked, what didn't work? Things like, what's their average days on the market? How long would they expect to sell their home? Have they got comparable sales? You're saying my house is worth $500,000. Why? What else have you sold for $500,000? So base your home on sold properties, not that homes that are high in the sky. So you want to actually give you sales evidence that you can say, yes, my home's worth $500,000 based on these 3 sales that we sold around the corner or over the road. So they've got the history of what you're talking about.
That history, is that easy to get, or your stats on your past performance? Where's that information available from?
Look, your agent would supply that to them. There's a number of portals that they can get that through with being an estate agent. But your agent would have other homes that he's sold as well, so you can use direct comparisons as well. Yep. That information is available to the public, but the real estate agent will supply that to you.
Yep, fantastic. Look, as a financial advisor, I have a lot of clients that are upgrading or sometimes downsizing as they get to a certain age, and that can be a very stressful time, particularly for my older clients, and getting the right matching timing of selling their property and buying the other property, and getting the timing right around moving from one to the other. Obviously settlement can be an issue, and cash flow. Is there any, it's a tough question, but is there any tricks to the trade there?
The purchaser or the vendor in that case would have 2 options. The option is to go, they probably have 3 options. If they're very financial, then they might be able to afford to buy the house that they want first before they sell their own house. The other option is go to the bank and look at a bridging loan or finance loan that they could buy a property, purchase the home that they want, pay the interest and then sell their own. Or for a lot of people who are not in that position, most likely they'll need to sell their own house first before they can go, because they'll need the funds from that house to purchase another house. So my advice to those people, and which is most people, is that you put your house on the market, sell your own home so you know how much you've got to spend, sell it with like a 120-day settlement, which is a 4-month settlement. And that would then, once you know your home is sold with how much money you've got with a 4-month settlement, that's going to give us 90 days with a 30-day settlement to find you the home that you're looking for. So if you're looking for a house and you sold your house for $250, after costs it might be $240 that you'll walk away with after costs, then we would give us 90 days to find you a unit that would make up to 90 days up to $240, and then you'd have a 30-day settlement after. So you can move from your own home into the unit that you want to go into, moving from one property to the other without having that 2 moves in between. Worst case scenario, if you don't find your own house, then you would have to look at a rental property.
Yep. Fantastic. What's some simple strategies a seller can do to improve the marketability, the sale price, and getting it done in a good time frame? So what can sellers do to improve their existing house to get a quick sale and maximise the sale price? Yeah,
look, a good agent should be able to come out, Rob, and give the vendors the right advice what they need to do to maximise their sale price. They shouldn't be able to look at any property. There's always those general things like first appearance counts. So, if there's a gate that's broken, fix the gate before you walk in, have all the lawns nicely trimmed, make sure they're nice and neat. The front appearance is really good, but certainly make the home nice and light and bright. So if you're in winter, maybe all the lights on in the home, If summer, have all the curtains open. Make sure the climate of the house is right, so it's giving a nice warmly feel. If it's in winter, obviously have the heater on. Vice versa, if it's in summer, have the cooler on. Declutter the home to make it feel more spacious. So a lot of people have, over the years, if they've lived in a home a long time, they've bought lots of different furniture, and sometimes the homes can actually feel quite cluttered. So it might be a matter of just saying to them, look, how about we remove certain pieces of furniture to open the rooms up to make them feel more spacious. And probably finally, if there's any little maintenance jobs that need to be done, maybe there's a wall where the kids have had posters on the wall in the blue tack, or the pins on the wall is not giving that right impression. Maybe have a painter come in and do little jobs like sand the wall and paint the wall, so that first impression. So when buyers come through, there are no little objections.
Fantastic. Now, last question, a bit more light-hearted. I'm looking for the funniest thing you've seen in your business, and look, I'm not particularly after the raunchy, desperate housewife story, but if you've got one, that'll be fine as well.
Look, Rob, in real estate, each day there's always a funny moment to each day. That's the best thing about dealing with the public. There's always different experiences. Probably my funniest moment, it wasn't that raunchy, but it was a little bit along those lines when I was about 19 or 20 years of age, and I was, the thing that we used to do is, when you were looking for a business, and you still do today, you go along the street and you knock on doors and say, excuse me, hi, I'm just looking for houses for sale. And I remember walking along, it's over the railway line, and I came to this Federation style house, and it was the old Federation style home, had the long passageway, and it had the fly screen that you couldn't see, or you could sort of see through. And I knocked on the door and they couldn't hear, and then I realised there was a doorbell, and I pressed the doorbell, and as I pressed the doorbell I heard the shower open up, and the lady must have thought it was the phone ringing, and she's run out and she's standing in the passageway going, hello, hello, and I'm looking at her going, I'm sorry, it's not the telephone, it's the doorbell. And she's just looked at me, and we've just both gone, she's run looking for cover. I've gone, embarrassing moment. So it was a pretty funny time at the time.
Yeah,
so
very much a desperate housewife scenario.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Rob, for taking the time to do the interview, and look, some really great information. Really appreciate it. And look, if anyone's got any questions, for Rob, we can email them in. We can flick them off to Rob. I'm sure he'll provide an answer for us. And if you've got any other financial related question, by all means send it in, and we'll be happy to cover that off on a simple question or a topic of interest. So please feel free to do that. Thanks, Rob, and thanks very much for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.